Okay guys, right now we're talking about saddle fit. This is one of the most important things you can think about when you're putting your saddle on your horse. Does it fit correctly? So if your horse and your saddle don't match, if your saddle doesn't fit right, you're going to end up with some problems. Probably the smallest problems you'll have is you'll have some kind of maybe a sore on your horse, or maybe a rub spot, a bald spot on the hair. The most severe problems you can have is you can actually lame your horse. You can hurt their back and injure your horse, and it can turn into a chronic issue. So we want to make sure that our horse's saddle fits them correctly. It's much like if you buy a pair of boots, they have to fit you as a person. You can't just share them with anybody. And you know, if you have an ill-fitting pair of boots, it really doesn't help a whole lot just to buy a different pair of socks. You know, so the pad isn't going to fix your problem. You have to have a saddle that fits your horse. We're going to talk about 5 topics today on that are really important. The first one is the scapula. You want to make sure that the scapula has room for the rotational movement that it makes as the horse walks. You also want to make sure that the saddle isn't too long for your horse. So a lot of these square skirt saddles, they can go back so far on your horse's back that they can actually touch the hip of the horse, and with the rotational movement of that hip, it can actually cut a hole or rub a hole in the front of the hip. So those are 2 of them. The next one is you want to have even pressure from the front of the saddle all the way to the back. So if you slide your hand under the saddle at the front, it needs to have the same pressure at the front at the scapula as it does in the middle, all the way at the back of the skirt of the saddle. So those are several of them. We have more though. All right, so another one is the seat size of the saddle. The maximum seat size that I recommend is a 16-inch seat. You know, if you're any bigger than that, you probably shouldn't be riding horses. It's just a fact. If you have a seat size that goes into an 18, 19-inch seat, looks like a big limousine saddle, your rear end is going to be sitting back on the unsupported vertebra of the horse's back, called the lumbar. Now, you know, all of the vertebrae in front of that are supported by the rib cage, the sternum, but when you get past that, you have kind of like this unsupported bridge of the vertebra. And especially when you get into the trot, you really don't want to be bouncing around back there very much, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate some of this stuff and show you what it looks like with a saddle. So we have a big Wade Tree Western saddle here. It is a large saddle. You know, whether it be big or small, it doesn't matter. It has to fit right. We want to make sure that the fit is right for the horse. So the way that we test this is we do this without a blanket, without a pad. We put the saddle directly on the horse, okay? I'm going to bring that over. I'm going to get it about where I would usually have it if I were riding, and I can tell by the cinch that that's pretty close. It would probably come a little bit more forward, maybe right there. I'm going to check several things. The first thing that I notice about this is that the skirt has plenty of room from the hip. It's way off of the hip. But you know, if you were to have maybe a little Arabian, a short-backed horse, maybe even a pony, you probably wouldn't want to use a large saddle on this. This saddle is actually a round skirt, so it helps you out on that some. But if it were a square skirt and it came straight down, it could cause some rubbing on a short-backed horse. Of course, Shire's a large horse. She has plenty of room there. It's a 16-inch seat. I already know that, so it's not too big. The next point of reference is here at the scapula. You know, if you put your hand underneath here and you can't slide it in underneath the saddle like I just did there with ease, it's probably too tight on the scapula. All right, and there's the shoulder blade, because you have this movement in the shoulder blade. A lot of saddles, especially cheap ones, will have this little ball that comes down right here underneath the front of it, and it will just dig into that muscle with every rotation, with every step of the horse. All right, so from there, I'm going to just bring my stirrup up and over, get it out of the way, and I'm going to just slide my hand underneath here, and I should be able to slide that hand from front to back without it changing tension, okay? All right, so that felt pretty good. If I started up here and it was really tight, and then I got right here, and let's just say I was underneath and I start being able to play piano here and my fingers were loose, I would know that I probably have a lot of tension here and here, but not in the middle. And those are gonna cause pressure points, so we don't wanna see those kinds of things happening. Now, another place that we pay a lot of attention is right up here at the withers. The withers are it's that big bony structure that sticks up off the front of the back of the horse, okay? So you have this, you have your horn, and then directly under the horn and the pommel you have underneath here is called the gullet. And this gullet should not touch the withers, the bony structure that's sticking up. You should be able to put at least 2 fingers underneath here in the space between the bottom of the gullet and the top of the withers. So those are the bigger points of what we're looking for with saddle fit. Test your horse, test the horses you're using for your lesson, and just make sure that all of these points are referenced on your saddle and that they fit properly.